Greetings and salutations, Internet Dozens. It is Wolfphototech, and here we go with another delightful video. This time, it's actually covering a new book that has recently came out in the past few weeks, for at least everyone else but Paizo subscribers. This is the Knights of Lastwall book in the Lost Omens line. It is covering the faction Knights of Lastwall and factions associated around them in their history from early on to now, specifically focused around the Pathfinder 2nd edition era. It is over 127 pages. It is a hardcover book. It's a Paizo number. Oopsie doodles. Is right there. I'm one of those weird people that really wants to organize all of their books specifically in the fashion of the actual Paizo number. As usual, Paizo has the awesome artwork. Oops. Turn that away. So you get some slight reflection. I have to tilt it. You have a nice index up here, or a chapter section. You have a beautiful scene with a knight. You got a nice mixture of knights. It's in this book of all races and creeds, or races and genders. Awesome combat scene, a good amount of text. This first section is largely talking about the introduction to the Knights of Lastwall, explaining to you who they are. And then it goes into the history section. Goes by, down this side has dates, and then on the exact opposite side it continues with dates on this side of major events, as well as a large body of text explaining somewhat of their origin, a little bit of their history, and then their failure to keep back the Whispering Tyrant, which is an allegory for a rather important moment in Paizo's history. You got a nice mix of characters in this book. A large portion of these first few pages are largely telling you. Large portion of these first few pages are explaining not just the history of the Knights of Lastwall, but as well as their culture. Becoming a knight in knight's training, Knights of Lastwall code, the Knights of Lastwall squads. It talks about in conversation their culture as various individuals talking back and forth, and as an example, continues on to a knight's respite, a knight's end, keeps going, their relationships, the various factions in which they are allied with. So this book is actually a very deep lore book starting out. It talks to you through the history, and then it adds layers into them. Their allies, their opponents. That's a rather dangerous opponent. If you ever see someone on the opposing faction like that, you might want to get really concerned with some young guys getting confused and running off. The greatest weakness of men is a pretty face. Yes. You got some cute characters here and there. This is the faction section. So once you go chapter 2, among the knights, you got various factions, their membership, their symbols. You got a really broad range of characters in this book. that brings up. It continues on. The Crimson Reclaimers. Explains their mission, their specialty, etc., etc. Then it goes into various other groups. Continues on. Notable figures within the organizations of the Knights of the Lastwall and the factions around them. Continues on. Yet again with Paizo, they have exquisite artwork. Sorry about that. Glare. Vampire Knight. You got really interesting, really complex characters with their own backstories and goals. Fears, wants, their personal code. A little bit of history. This section goes into the Faiths. The Faith section basically gives you the general faiths in which are common amongst the Knights of the Lastwall, and then the various deities that are associated with them. You got a really nice mixture of deities, mostly lawful, mostly in the good spectrum, although you get some of them that are not entirely good or entirely balanced as individuals. So it just continues through. You got a nice mixture of deities for your various knights to associate with. And just continue on. You even got Pharasma, the Lady of Graves. Perhaps one of the most powerful deities in Golarion. As well as Sarenrae, the Dawn Flower, which is actually quite an important one. You got another section, the Crimson Oath. Continues on. And then you get into this section. This is a beautiful piece of artwork of a knight with a bunch of young trainees. And this section is all about options. You got some backgrounds. You got some rare backgrounds. Now, to explain backgrounds and rare backgrounds, they're basically, obviously, if you play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, you understand it and what a background is. Rare backgrounds are special backgrounds that might have mechanics that might make the characters slightly more powerful in world lore. So when Paizo attaches the word uncommon or rare to a thing called like a background, items, classes, ancestries, it usually is something like, we recognize that this might unbalance a few things a little bit. Uncommon is strong, but not game-breaking. Rare has potential to break games if the game master doesn't account for the special tweaks that occur with the rare. So, you got Knight Vigilant feats. There's various dedication feats in various books. If you were to go to the core rulebook, actually, this is from the Knight Vigilant is from the character guide, which I have. I will actually at some point do a video series going over for some of this stuff and explaining in better detail. But this is just basically a general overview. If you have the character guide, this book acts... In this book, it's important to note that a lot of stuff in this book ties into the Advanced Player's Guide, the APG, and the character guide. There are a few things here and there that add on to there. So if you ever were to consider if you're getting into Pathfinder, I would definitely get the core rulebook first. Then there's the character's guide, And then there is the APG. As a player, you want core rulebook, then those 2 books, and then you expand from there. And at some point, I'll probably do a video series explaining what order of books you want to buy with limited funds. And particularly if your campaign or game master is going in a particular direction. But anyways, these are various feats for the dedication of the Knight Vigilant. And then you have the Knight Reclaimer feats, which is the same kind of thing. You go to the character's guide. There is a Knight Vigilant archetype in that book. And these feats add on to that. You get a new focus spell here. For love and for lightning. You got Lastwall Sentry feats. You got other archetypes. This is a section just basically for random feats for various archetypes in other books. So like Angel of Vindication feat here, level 4. It requires the Assassin Dedication Advanced Player's Guide. And then, as I said before, a lot of these feats that do require other books to use are often Advanced Player's Guide and Character Guide. So, you got nice artwork. I don't know about the whole wheelchair thing. If you make a world that is highly organic and with a heavy adventure focus, a wheelchair would be really hard to do adventuring with. You would have to make the wheelchair magical, a special magical mechanical wheelchair to World War wiggle over routes and staircases and all kinds of stuff. So, if you want rules for wheelchairs, that is in the Grand Bazaar book. Because they actually outline all the mechanics for the wheelchairs in that book. You got nightly training feats. It continues on. You got a rather handsome goblin right there. And then you go into items. And this is actually a nice thing about a lot of Paizo books. They always seem to include a lot of beautiful artwork, and they'll oftentimes label the items themselves. They don't always got artwork for every single item, but the artwork is always top notch. And they always have such a nice variety of items in their book. Makes one really wish Wizards of the Coast would get their butts in gear and actually put some effort in. New spells. These spells are actually quite neat. I would have to run them in game to actually get a good idea how well they play out. Another chapter. As you can see, oftentimes in these chapters, you'll often have double spread or 2-page spread of artwork. Cute scene with a bunch of goblins and a tactician explaining tactics in war. And then this section is basically just going into the various regions and some of the cultures and some of the cultures in the regions in relationship to the Knights of the Lastwall. This is specifically the Gravelands section, which is a neighboring. It's hard to say exactly. I had to reread it again to remember exactly how it ties in. But it's basically a whole area that's nothing but undead. Bunch of charts here for various dangers. You got the Eye of Dread region. And various cultures in that, talking about the various cultures in that region. The Broken Lands. Every page almost has a piece of artwork on it that's nice. You're not going to go very far without having some artwork in there. I truly do love the fact that Paizo has these sidebars with little special bits of information, and oftentimes references to other sections, like this one over here on the opposite side. And then you have the Glossary and Index. And it's a must-have for any book to have a glossary and index in it. And then the back advertisement. And as I can tell, this is actually a rather neat book. It is $39.99 for 127 pages. I swear at one point the 120 some page books were going right in the range of $29.95 or $34.95. So this is feels like it's a little more expensive than they were at one point, but of course I'm kind of forgetful about that stuff. I usually kind of just work it into my budget and go and buy it whenever I see it as quickly as possible. But anyways, this is a rather interesting book, and at some point I had to work it into a game, but I can't really give a review. This book is largely an expansion book to two other books, the APG and the Character's Guide. So if you get those two books first, this definitely adds on to those a lot more. If you don't get those two books first, you're largely gaining mostly, say, world lore and some magic items and a few other things here and there, like the spells in the back and other things. But the book is truly an accessory expansion. You probably definitely would want to get the Character's Guide and the APG first. And when I say APG, it's the Advanced Player's Guide. And of course, considering those two books, you want the core rule book before that. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like on it and consider subscribing. And if you prefer more Pathfinder 2nd Edition books, stuff over Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, go ahead and leave that in the comments below. If you're really up for more Dungeons & Dragons, leave that in the comments below. I'll try to work as much of everything I can into the channel. It's just basically just shifting priorities and times, okay? Have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful weekend, a magnificent month, and see you next time.